My name is Anna Leschanowski. I'm a research associate at Fraunhofer IIS in Germany, and I'm doing research on privacy and data protection for conversational AI. And I want to chat about privacy today and about privacy dialogues in conversational AI. Let's start with a question. When was the last time you read a privacy policy? You don't have to say that in the chat. You can if you want to. Just think about it. When was the last time you read a privacy policy? And I have to admit, I probably never fully read one. I usually skim through them if I feel that they're important to read. But yeah, I never fully read one. If you don't remember when you last read one, that's also fine. Because there's a reason why we don't read privacy policies. Because they are long, they are complicated texts, they have legal jargon in technical terms as well. And especially when it comes to privacy policies for voice assistants, you have to read through two documents usually. There's the general privacy policy, and then there's an additional privacy policy for the voice assistant, or like an additional privacy FAQ for the voice assistant. And to be fully informed, you actually would need to read through both of them. So what we did was we counted the words for typical well-known privacy policies for voice assistants, Amazon Alexa, Apple Siri, and Google Assistant. And if you assume an average reading rate of 250 words per minute, then you end up with a time to read the policy would take you between 19 and 32 minutes. Nobody wants to spend that much time on reading privacy policies, right? I could think of a lot of different things I would do with 32 minutes. So why do we have privacy policies after all? And all the business owners, you know that, there are legal regulations. We have legal requirements, and in many jurisdictions, companies are required by law to have a privacy policy that outlines their data collection and processing practices. And then failure to comply with these laws can result in fines and legal actions. But there's more to privacy policies. And one thing is that they are intended to inform users, to enhance transparency, and to inform users about privacy and about personal information processing, data processing practices. And this transparency, it should help users to make informed decisions about whether the users want to share data with you as a company or whether they want to keep their data private. Also, privacy policies are intended to build user trust, because by enhancing transparency through a privacy policy, you demonstrate your commitment to protect users' privacy, and therefore you could build user trust. And lastly, accountability is an important topic when it comes to privacy policies. Privacy policies can serve as a means of accountability for companies, because if companies violate the terms of their privacy policy, then users can hold them accountable. The thing is, current privacy policies, they fail in almost all those things. Of course, they legally comply, they comply with legal regulations, but they do not enhance transparency, they don't build user trust, and it's really difficult for users to hold companies accountable. So the question is, how can we leverage conversational AI to enhance transparency, to inform users appropriately? And the idea of privacy dialogues or conversational privacy bots has been around for a while in the research community. Privacy dialogues can inform users, they can enhance transparency and increase user trust better than any privacy policy could do. So we were wondering if we can chat about privacy with current voice assistants. And this is why we ask Amazon Alexa, Apple Siri, and Google Assistant privacy-related questions. And that is what we got. So when we asked Google Assistant about what it knows about us, what it did know about me, well, it would display profile information. heavily relying on a traditional user interface, a graphical user interface, instead of a voice user interface. And I'm pretty sure Google Assistant would know much more about me due to automatic data processing than only simply profile information. Similarly, we ask Alexa how we can delete data, and we got the following answer. Amazon takes privacy seriously. For more information and to view Amazon's privacy notice, visit the help section of your Alexa app. Again, here, Amazon is relying on a traditional app interface rather than using a conversation and knowing that it would take 19 minutes to go through the privacy notice. Well, I'm not going to do that. And it got even worse when we started asking more detailed privacy questions. So, name is personal information that should fall under a privacy policy. But no matter which of the three assistants we asked, we did not get satisfying answers. And mostly we got something like, sorry, I'm not sure about that, or sorry, I don't have an answer to that. So privacy dialogues and privacy bots, they are promising to inform users appropriately about data processing practices to enhance transparency and increase user trust. But we saw that current voice assistants are not able to have those privacy dialogues, privacy chats, privacy conversations, whatever you want to call them. And researchers have worked on making privacy dialogues become a reality by constructing and annotating privacy question and answer datasets. But the problem is there are only a few of those annotated privacy Q&A corpora, and all of them have a focus on mobile applications or websites. Privacy policies of conversational AI systems, they are very different though, and users might ask various questions that are not yet covered by those corpora. For example, people might ask how their voice recordings are handled, how they are processed, and what can be inferred maybe from their voice recordings or text transcripts. And this is not yet addressed by existing corpora. What is more, research focused on extracting long privacy policy excerpts instead of constructing short and engaging answers to privacy questions. And then, even if answers were constructed and not only extracted from the policy, that work was usually done by legal experts with no expertise in conversational design. This is why we designed this interdisciplinary workflow to make privacy dialogues become a reality and to inform users, enhance transparency, and increase user trust. So we start off here on the left side with a catalog of privacy questions. And those can be taken from existing corpora, user studies, or also, of course, real user interactions. We then construct answers based on the privacy policy and have them checked here by privacy and legal experts to ensure that our answers are legally valid and compliant. But opposed to previous research, we don't stop here because we want to deliver engaging conversations and a best user experience to people. And this is why we include voice designers into our workflow and let them revise our privacy answers. Lastly, to ensure that these created answers by the voice designers are still legally valid, we have another privacy and legal experts check. Lastly, we conduct usability testing with end users, might implement user feedback, or we just release our privacy Q&A, our privacy dialogues. So when we started off with this workflow, with this interdisciplinary workflow, we quickly realized that there are patterns that reoccurred. And therefore, we came up with guidelines for constructing these privacy answers. And I want to give you a quick insight into what we came up with. So the first guideline, the first recommendation we give, it should be really intuitive, but we have seen that in our voice assistant study that it is not common. And this is why the first recommendation is avoid symbols or website links. Avoid relying on traditional user interfaces, as this does not help to enhance transparency in a voice user interface. Second, be brief, but if necessary, prioritize conversations over single utterances. And I want to give you an example of that. So imagine a user asking whether a company guarantees that their location information is secure. Of course, you could list all the safeguards, all the technical and procedural safeguards that you take to ensure privacy and security. But usually it's bad practice to let a voice device talk for a long time. And what you could do instead then is to make a turn, make a conversational turn, start a conversation. And that could look something like this. We design our systems with your security and privacy in mind and maintain physical, electronic, and procedural safeguards to protect your information. Would you like to know more about our safeguards? And then it is up to the user to whether he or she wants to know more or less. The third recommendation we give is to communicate clearly and be consistent in language use. Avoid legal jargon or technical terms as much as possible because those terms, they usually make a privacy policy hard to read. But of course, check in with your legal experts to ensure that your answers are still compliant and legally valid. Also, use a language that is consistent with the tone and voice of the assistant and appropriate for the target audience. Fourth recommendation, be specific. And also here, I want to give an example. So what we realized when testing privacy dialogues, privacy conversations in practice was that very specific questions are answered using more general terms. For example, if you're asking whether a company shares your name, you might get an answer like that. We do not share your personal information. That's a legally valid answer. However, it is cognitively effortful for the user because the user has to make a connection between, okay, my name falls under the category of personal information, and this is why, well, obviously they won't share my name with anyone. It can leave users uncertain and thereby trigger unwanted feelings. So instead of that, be specific and just state that, well, we do not share your name. Fifth recommendation would be expect and handle ambiguous questions. I think this is very well known in conversational experiences, so voice user interface design. Ambiguity will also be part of privacy dialogues, and you need to expect and handle them wisely. For example, if a user asks, who has access to my data? Well, who can refer to a specific individual if the device is shared in a household, but it can also refer to the organization as a whole or to third parties. And I won't go into more detail here, but just be aware that there are different kinds of ambiguity and you have to expect them and handle those questions. The sixth recommendation would be assist users proactively. And this is very important, especially when it comes to privacy, because most of the users, they do have privacy concerns, but those privacy concerns, they do not directly translate into behavior. Users or people in general have a hard time in adjusting privacy settings. So make it easy for them and assist users proactively, and this will also build user trust in the long run. This could look something like that. So if a user asks, how can I delete my last voice recording? The assistant could answer, you can delete your voice recordings in your voice history in your settings or by asking me to delete them. Well, that's a legally valid answer again, and it's also compliant. It probably also helps the user to a certain extent, but it's reactive, it's not proactive. So what you would want instead is add a question. Would you like to delete the last voice recording now? And therefore, it's much more engaging and it's easier for the user to actually translate their concerns into direct behavior. And lastly, be polite, empathetic, and non-judgmental. And The answer you will see on the next slide, that was actually given by a voice assistant in a similar format. So we ask, what is my name? And it come up with, seriously, I'm concerned you don't know that. Well, depending on your voice persona, that might be all right, but well, I doubt that it's polite, empathetic, and non-judgmental. So instead of what you would like to do is say something like that. Sorry, I don't know your name, but you can tell me by creating a voice ID, and this way I can address you by name in the future. So those are all the recommendations I have for you for now. Let's conclude quickly. So privacy policies, they are long, complex, and insufficient in informing users, especially when we're talking about voice user interfaces. Instead, privacy dialogues, they can appropriately inform users, enhance transparency, and increase user trust. And to construct engaging and legally valid privacy dialogues, we need an interdisciplinary approach. We need to combine legal expertise and voice designers' expertise to create engaging and user-friendly privacy conversations. So thank you for your attention. I'm not so sure if we have time for questions, but yeah, you can reach out to me anytime via email, but I'm also here around in Edinburgh. So yeah, find me at the summit and come and talk to me.